we're doing tonight. This is lecture 8 for me, and we're doing Hebrews 4, 1 through 13. Now, last time, we did Hebrews 3, 7 through 19, and we're continuing with 4, 1 through 13. The reason I'm telling you that is because 3, 7 through 4, 13, what we did last time plus what we're doing tonight, is the second warning passage. Okay, it is the second warning passage. So we're right in the middle of it. Even though we include 3, 7 through 19 as part of the second warning passage, because you can't really break them up, this part, 4, 1 through 13, is the actual warning itself. Okay, so the first part kind of sets it up, and then this part brings the hammer down. The author has just presented the wilderness generation as a historical example of failure. A historical. How would you like to be? Who's the worst team in history? Any sport. Worst team in history. The Browns is a good one. Bad News Bears, yeah. Who? Oh, yeah, they're bad. See, I mean, but now this thing, here's my point. First team that came to my mind was it just slipped. Where did it go? Oh, I know. The football team that lost, I can't think of their name now because you said the Hornets. The football team that lost 63 games in a row, and they were playing another football team that had lost like 59 in a row, and they played each other, and when they won, you would have thought it was a Super Bowl. They were 1-63, but they were happy because at least they had won a game, right? Here's my point, even though I've forgotten their name. Here's the point. You don't want to be known as the Hornets or the Browns or a team like that, right? They're the worst example of a team. They're known for their awfulness. And that's what Israel's known for in the wilderness. They're the worst team ever. They're Team God, but they're the worst. They failed almost every test. They were 0-63. And so the author picks them as an illustration of don't be the Browns. Don't be Israel. They were redeemed from Egypt. They were part of the covenant people, yet they failed to enter the land. And the author interprets that failure as missing rest. Now, I want y'all to notice this word, because this is where most commentators miss the boat. What does this mean in the passage, do you think? Rest. They failed to obtain the rest. Okay, peace, that's a good one. What else? If you're connecting it to the Israel passage in Exodus, and they failed to obtain the rest, okay, blessing, that's a good one. Okay. The question is, what is this rest, right? And just as importantly, what does it mean to enter into it or to fail to enter into it? All right? So let's go with Roman numeral 1, the continuing promise of rest. Hebrews 4:1. Therefore, let us fear, if while a promise remains of entering his rest, any one of you may seem to have come short of it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all tonight. My notes are not good. Okay? There's a lot in this passage. I didn't really know how to tackle it. I told Brother John I'd probably ad-lib a lot. I got 10 pages, so I can't ad-lib too much. But there's so much in these verses. And as I was reading it this time, rest is actually not right, is it? What is it in the verse? Remains of entering what? His rest. See, rest and his rest, there's a big difference, right? And that is jumping off the page at me. Every time I read this passage, something new grabs me. So whatever rest is, it's his rest. It is his rest. It's not the world's rest. It's not anybody else's rest. It is his. It's not even Israel's rest. It's his rest. Okay? So, as any one of you may seem to come short of it. Now notice this. A promise remains, according to the verse. Why is that important? The rest is still available. It's still future. And it's still conditional in experience. So, we're going to see in just a minute, they failed into the rest, but the rest didn't disappear. Now think about that. the rest is still available. And it was actually there for them. They could have entered the rest. And so we're going to try to talk about that if we get time. But God didn't, I call it the Democrat dollar. Do y'all know what and I'm not talking politics, that's just a common name for it down here in the South. What's the Democrat dollar? You put it on a fishing line, throw it out there, and the kid goes to grab it, what do? It really never was available, was it? It's just an illusion that you can get that dollar because they're always going to snatch it away from you before you can grab it. God didn't dangle rest in front of Israel and say, here it is, oops, I was just kidding. It was actually there for them to get. It was actually there for them to get, okay? So his rest is a true rest. It's a real rest. And it's an available rest. And yet there's a problem with them missing it, right? It says, let us fear. Now, this is not fear of condemnation. It is a serious awareness of accountability. But it's so much more. It is the realization that our future in the kingdom is conditioned based on, entirely upon, our own actions after our salvation. What were you before you got saved? It doesn't matter. It does not matter what you were before you got saved. But from the moment you got saved until the moment you stand before Christ, that does matter. Is it your salvation? No. But it is your place in the kingdom. It is your place in the kingdom. So whatever you do with your salvation, it'll matter now and in the future, okay? It has nothing to do with salvation in the sense of heaven and hell. And if you'll hear me out tonight, then I'll try to prove that what is at stake is our eternal rewards. Earth is a testing ground, nothing more. But the results of that testing will affect us for all eternity. It says, come short. Now, I'm not going to give the Greek word, it doesn't matter, but what the Greek meaning is does matter. It means to fail to grasp or miss something that is actually available. Okay, that's what I was mentioning a while ago. If we come short of something and it's an illusion or not really there, if it's a mirage, this Greek word would not work. This Greek word says, hey, the oasis in the desert, it's actually there. It's really there. You can get to it. You can get to it. Nobody's moving it. It's not hidden. There it is. Get to it, okay? So the concern is not losing something you've already possessed. It's failing to obtain something that is being offered. So it can't be salvation. It cannot be salvation. We're going to see that in a moment. They already had salvation. This is something that was available that they never obtained. All right, number 2, the gospel and the wilderness generation, chapter 4, verse 2. For indeed, we have had good news preached to us just as they also. Who also? The group back in Exodus, right? Can this be the gospel of the cross? Is this talking about Jesus dying at Calvary? It was preached to them. Christ hadn't died on the cross yet, right? So this refers what? To the promise of entering the land. And Brother John, I'm so glad that you're doing Exodus right now. This is just a wonderful complimentary series. You can see Israel, what they're doing in Brother John's sermons. God says, hey, he preached this morning, I'm going to let you go to the land, but I'm not going with you, not in the same way. I'll send my angel. And Moses said, hey, if you're not going with us, we'd rather stay in the wilderness with you than be in the promised land without you. That's what he's talking about here. He's saying, I'm going to let you enter the land, but not the way that you were supposed to. So the good news here is the promise of entering the land and participation in the covenant blessing. But it did not profit them. They had the good news preached to them, but it didn't profit them. Why? Because it was not united by faith. Hearing is not enough. Response determines participation, right? Cleveland, you hear about a tree that fell. It's on a mansion. It's going to be a big job. You hear about it. You know it's a big job. You say, hey, I can make a lot of money taking that tree off. I know I'm capable. I got the crane. I got the crew. I know that it's there, and you roll over and you go to sleep. What good did it do you to hear about it? It didn't, did it? You knew it. It was available. You could have bid on it. But you rolled over and went to sleep. It didn't profit him to hear about it, right? Okay. But if he had called up the person with the mansion and said, hey, I'm Bannister Tree Service. I'm putting in a pitch for you here, Cleveland. I'm Bannister Tree Service. I'm the best around. I'll do this job for this price, and I'll do a great professional job cleaning up. And the guy says, you're hired. Then the response determined his participation. He called him up, he followed up, and he got the job. And he gets paid, right? Okay. So, verse 3, Roman numeral 3, entering rest through faith. For we who have believed enter that rest. All right, so let's do our grammatical historical method clarification. This is not a simple statement of completed entrance. We who have believed enter that rest. Now, present active verbs, present indicative verbs, okay? How can they be translated? How can a present in English? If it says here, we who have believed enter that rest, what's also acceptable? We are entering, right? I ate a sandwich in the past, right? I am eating, right? I am eating. That's present tense. If I say I eat a sandwich, that means I eat a sandwich. Am I doing it right now? Yes. But if I say I am eating, that also means what? I'm doing it right now. So here, it is a present active verb. And what it's saying is, we who have believed are entering, present tense, that rest. It's present participation. It's an ongoing experience. It's also a future consummation. So the tension is this: believers are entering, present tense, yet they're still warned not to miss it. They're in the process of entering, and yet the author says, don't miss it. Right? How's that possible? Let me give you an example. Catherine, who's the worst driver in a big city like exits and stuff, you or Cleburne? Worst, yeah. Cleburne is? Okay, we'll go with Cleburne. All right, so you're sitting with Cleburne, and Cleburne's not really paying attention, and you're the navigator, and he's got his blinker on because he knows the exit is coming up. He's in the process of exiting. And it says exit 11A and exit 11B. And you say take exit 11. He's in the right lane, he's got his blinker on, he's going. A or B, A or B, A or B. And he goes by A, and he says, it must be B, and you say, it was A. He was in the process of exiting the whole time. But what happened? He missed it. He was exiting. He was in the act of exiting, but he missed the exit. And that's what the author's saying here. He's saying we are entering right now. We're in the process of entering that rest, but don't miss it. Having your blinker on is not enough. You actually have to get off on the exit, right? Okay. Number 4, the nature of rest. Now there's some interpretive options here. And at this point, we must carefully examine the meaning of rest. So let's dig into this a little bit. Option 1, let's do it this way. Option 1, what is rest? Well, we got an option here, and I may not name all of the options, but these are the main ones. Option 1. All right, so what is rest? All right, option 1, and I hope y'all can see this because my marker's kind of drying up a little bit. Salvation. Salvation. Some people, a lot of people, argue this rest refers to justification, eternal salvation, okay? So they're saying we're in the process of being saved, but don't miss being saved. So that's what we know about the Bible. We know that just doesn't work, right? To use the old country saying, it don't G and haw, right? All right, so that's not going to work because the problem is the audience is already addressed as believers. He's already done that. We're in chapter 4. He's already talked about them being brothers. He's already told them they are believers. And if they're already believers, their salvation is already secure. So they're warned as believers not to miss the rest. And this creates an unsolvable tension if rest equals salvation. All right, so what is option 2? All right, option 2. Option 2 is present spiritual rest. Who said peace a while ago? All right, so it's kind of like that, present spiritual rest. All right? All right. Present spiritual rest. Inner peace, to quote Sifu on Kung Fu Panda, one of my favorite movies. I can identify with the panda. In case y'all don't know, he's kind of fat. Inner peace and spiritual experience, okay? So you're saved, but you're not getting the peace of salvation. The problem is the context emphasizes this is a future promise. It's an inheritance that's awaiting you. And you're entering what Israel failed to enter. Right? So Israel did get into the land, and therefore they achieved some things, but they didn't achieve what God intended for them to achieve. It's more than just this present spiritual rest, okay? And option 3 is this. And Ian, I hope you don't miss this. What is eschatological? Come on. Yeah. I put him on the spot. Alyssa, help him. Yeah, eschatology is study of the end, so eschatological is what? End times, right? Yes, all right. So here we have, based on the grammatical historical method, I would say this is the best interpretation. It's the eschatological, end times, rapture, second coming, tribulation, all that kind of stuff. End times participation in the coming kingdom, the fulfillment of covenant promise. Okay? So why is this important? He's saying you're saved and you are entering into that rest. Aren't Christians working toward that eschatological entrance into the kingdom? Yes. See, they can't get into the kingdom yet. Why? It's not here, right? But it's available out in the future. So you got your blinker on, you got your spiritual blinker on, you're coming, and what happens? You miss getting into the kingdom the way God intended because you did something that you shouldn't have done. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment, okay? So, in verses 4 and 5, Roman numeral 5, creation rest and its significance. So, it says the text, and God rested on the seventh day in verses 4 and 5. Now, what's the key insight here? God's rest is not inactivity. It's completed work. Followed by what? Enjoyment and rule, right? I mean, Adam and Eve, when they were created, everything was perfect, right? Everything was just the way it's supposed to be. Then he said, hey, everything's perfect, everything's right, go sit on your hiney, and let's just sing Kumbaya and everything works right. Is that what he said? What did he say? Do what? Tend the garden, guard it, right? The word in Hebrew there to keep the garden is actually to actively guard. Guard it. Guard the garden. Protect it. Okay? So, that's what Adam and Eve were supposed to do. They weren't just sitting around. They had a job to do. But it was rest, because that's what we're trying to get back to, what Adam and Eve lost, right? All right, so believers then are invited into participation in that completed order. Okay, that's what we are. Now, this may not be hitting home with you just yet. I'm going to try to bring it home, and this is what I'm going to try to bring home. What we do after we're saved affects how we participate in the kingdom. Now, I can prove that from multiple verses, so I'm going to say that again. What we do with our lives after salvation does and will affect how we participate in the kingdom. Okay? All right. So, the author is saying, go in the way God wants you to go in and enjoy the kingdom the way God wants you to enjoy. Did God want Israel to go into the promised land? And he swore it to them, right? So he couldn't break that promise. But he didn't say, I have to go up with you. As a matter of fact, he said, what? I'm not going to go up with you the way I promised. Of course, Moses prayed and he changed his mind. But what he said is, I'm not going up the way I promised that I was going to go, but I'm going to keep my promise. You get to go in the land, not the way I intended. Okay, so we want to participate in the kingdom the way God wants us to participate in the kingdom. All right, Roman numeral 6, today, verses 6 and 7. He again fixes a certain day, today. Today. So my point on Roman numeral 6 is ongoing opportunity. The opportunity remains open. When? Today. What about tomorrow? Is it available tomorrow? So is it available tomorrow? Yeah. What if we get killed in a car wreck on the way home? What happens to tomorrow? It's not there, right? Is yesterday available? It's gone, right? You missed that. You had your blinker on, but you're supposed to get off at exit 11A, and you were on exit 11B. Exit A is gone, right? Okay, so when he says today, he means today. And your today may be your last today you ever experience. So it's not indefinite. And one day your last today will, or one day you will experience your last today, right? One day you will. Whether he comes back or you die, your last today on this earth is coming. It is coming. All right? So, do it today. Verse 7, and this is an important one. It's chapter 4, verse 8. Joshua did not give final rest. The text says, for if Joshua had given them rest, what does that imply? He didn't, right? Okay, so since Joshua didn't give them rest, we could say, right? Since he didn't, all right, so what's our grammatical historical observation? The land under Joshua was a partial fulfillment, not the ultimate rest. So what's the conclusion we can draw from this? The true rest is future and greater. What Israel experienced in the promised land under Joshua didn't fulfill the promise. How big is the promised land in Genesis? Does anybody have any idea? Is it bigger or smaller than present-day Israel? Yeah, a little bigger or a lot bigger? Yeah, Brother John's going a lot bigger. It goes all the way to where? To the Tigris and Euphrates River. Anybody ever looked at a map and seen where Israel is today and where the Tigris and Euphrates is? Or is a long ways. There's a country in between. It's called Iraq. So all the way from the Mediterranean all the way to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, basically Iran, Iraq, and Israel today, that's the promised land. All the way into Egypt and all the way up into Turkey. We're not talking about a little pothole like Israel today. We're talking about a massive, massive piece of land. Okay, so the true rest is future and greater. Roman numeral 8, verses 9 and 10. The Sabbath rest. The Sabbath rest. It says, so there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. A Sabbath rest. So a while ago I had rest up here and it was called his rest, right? Now what kind of rest is it called? A Sabbath rest, okay? Sabbath here, obviously in the Greek, is a Sabbath observance. What is the Sabbath? What day is the Sabbath? What day is the Sabbath? No, it ain't Sunday. What day is it? It's Saturday. What day of the week is it? Seventh, exactly, right? Sunday's what day of the week? First day of the week, right? So Christians don't worship on the Sabbath. That's why Seventh-day Adventists teach people that worship on Sunday. What do they teach about Sunday worship? It's the mark of the beast. Yeah. Sunday worship is the mark of the beast in their system because we don't keep the Sabbath. Okay? So Sunday is the first day of the week, Saturday is the last day, and the Sabbath is the last day of the week. All right? So what am I getting at here? You work all week, and you get to the last day, and what did God do on the last day? He rested, right? So that's what he's saying. We get to the last day, and we get to participate in that rest. It's future-oriented, and it's tied to completion and reward. All right, Roman numeral 9, verse 11. Therefore, let us be diligent to enter that rest. Be diligent. All right. Can that be salvation in the sense of heaven and hell? Is it even possible? Can you diligently work for your salvation? Can you diligently strive for your salvation? Can you diligently fight for your salvation? Is that even possible? Anybody know Ephesians 2, 8, and 9? Alyssa, you ought to know it. How are you saved? And without what? Exactly. The reason she knows this so well, she had to read it about 20 times in Sunday school this morning because I was making a point, and we could do it again here. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Right? Okay, so you can want it as bad as you want it. You can work as hard, you can sweat blood, and you can't diligently get your salvation. You can't. All right? It means to strive, to exert effort, to be diligent. So it can't be justification because salvation is never based upon our own efforts. We can't do anything to add to our security. We can, though, add to our rewards. So rest is not passive. It involves participation in God's perfect plan, and to obtain that rest requires a faithful response of perseverance and diligence. Okay, so do you want that rest? You got to work for it. Ian, we talked about it in Sunday school this morning. Do you have to work for your salvation? But to be a disciple, does that require effort? A little bit of effort? A lot of effort? Whole lot of effort, he said, right? Whole lot of effort to be a disciple. That's what it's talking about. To get this rest, you have to strive for it. You have to earnestly strive for this rest, okay? Roman numeral 10, verses 12 and 13. The Word and accountability. The Word of God is living and active, the verse says. So what is the function? The Word exposes. It evaluates. The Word judges. What is it judging? What is it exposing? What's the Word exposing? Sin and what else? But there's a certain thing it's operating on. Yeah, our hearts. It's operating on the heart, right? So the Word exposes what's in our heart, and it judges it whether it's good or bad. Verse 13 says, all things are open and laid bare. Nothing is hidden. All are accountable. All right? Roman numeral 11, millennial reign and eschatological inheritance. So what's the synthesis? The rest described in Hebrews 4 aligns with kingdom participation, ruling with Christ, and an eschatological inheritance. Look at Revelation chapter 2, verse 26. Please turn your Bibles to Revelation 2, verse 26. Revelation 2:26. 2:26. All right, now here's the deal. In Revelation 2 and 3, there are 7 churches mentioned by name. At the end of every church's message that Jesus gives to that church, he says what? He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And then he says something like this, to him that overcometh, King James Version, to him that overcometh, I will give, I will grant, I will do something, right? I will do this. 7 times. But chapter 2, verse 26 is unique. All right? It says, he who overcomes, to him that overcometh, I will give authority over the nations. All right? This is an inheritance. In the future, I will, what tense? I will give. Future, when? Rule over the nations. When do we rule over the nations? In the kingdom, right? Okay. So it's an inheritance that includes authority, rulership, and participation in the kingdom. But this is the only promise with a condition. What's the condition? To him that overcometh and what? Wait, read it real slow, Michelle. All right, and keepeth my works. You can look at the other 6. There is no and. He who overcomes, I will give. He who overcomes, I will grant. But in 2:26, it's got a condition. Isn't it amazing? I'll give him right to the tree of life. I'll give him right to the manna. I'll give him right to the river of life. All these things. But here, what does he say? I'll give him a new stone. I'll give him a new name. No conditions. But here there's a condition. And what is it tied to? Ruling in the kingdom. Okay, see, it says, and keeps my works to the end. Overcoming, how do you overcome in Revelation? This is very specific. John uses this word. Look at 1 John chapter 5, verses 4 and 5. 1 John, right before Revelation, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude. Turn to 1 John chapter 5. See, the Bible is its own dictionary. And in this case, John wrote 1 John and he wrote Revelation. So how he defines overcoming in chapter 5, verses 4 and 5 tells us how to interpret it in Revelation chapter 2. All right, so read verse 4, Shell. All right. Chapter 5, verse 4, and then verse 5. All right. Who is he that overcomes the world? That's his question, right? Who is the overcomer? And he answers it. He that believes. He that believes, nothing else. He that believes what, Shell? That Jesus is the Son of God. How do you overcome? Trust Jesus for what? Salvation. As soon as you get saved, as soon as you're justified, which is immediate when you put faith in Jesus, the very instant you become justified, you also are classified as what? An overcomer. Now go to Revelation 2:26 again. To him that overcomes. Who is that talking to? Yeah, to the one that believes Jesus is what? The Son of God. So if you believe Jesus is the Son of God, you believe in His person and His finished work at Calvary's cross, you believe in all those things, I'm talking to you, to he that overcomes and keeps my works to the end. There's a condition. Perseverance and faithfulness. No other message, promise in chapters 2 and 3 has a condition. I missed that for years. And when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Our future inheritance in the kingdom and participation in the kingdom is conditional. The manna, to him that overcomes. The tree of life, to him that overcomes. White robes, him that overcomes. New name, him that overcomes. Ruling in the kingdom, overcomes and keeps my works to the end. You see that? That's pretty significant, right? Okay. All right, so Roman number 12. The parallel with Romans chapter 8, suffering and glory. Now, the epistle to the Romans in chapter 8 provides a critical parallel. Romans 8:17 says this, heirs of God, right? Inheritors of God, and fellow heirs with Christ, if, a condition, right? Indeed, we suffer with Him. How do you get to be a fellow heir with Christ? Yeah, you suffer, all right? So inheritance is connected to suffering, perseverance, identification with Christ. Now, Hebrews 4 and Romans 8 have a shared theme. Both teach future glory, both teach conditional participation, and both teach it's based on present endurance. Notice that. 8:17 says, fellow heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with Him. All right? There's a verse, let me see if I can find it, just came to mind. I'm going to get off my notes very, very quickly. I'm almost done here, believe it or not. And let's see if I can find this very quickly. Let's see. I think this is right. We'll see if I'm right. Let's see. Okay. I'm close. I feel it. Okay, yeah. All right, turn to 2 Timothy chapter 2. I'm going to clear up a very difficult verse that people misuse and misinterpret and take out of context, right? All right. 2 Timothy chapter 2. So that's near the end of Paul's letters. 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, all that good stuff, all right? 2 Timothy chapter 2. And this drives people crazy, these two verses. And the reason it does is because they've been polluted with a philosophy that's not based in the text. So we're going to clear that up tonight. Not in my notes, but it's worth doing. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12. All right, verse 12. Somebody that does not have the King James, read verse 12. Listen to what version you got. New King James, let's try verse 12.
If we endure, we shall also reign with him.
All right. If, condition, we endure, King James says suffer, we what, Alyssa?
We shall also reign with
Shall, what tense? Future tense, right? So he's talking about something in the future. If we endure right now, present tense, we will what? Reign. With whom? With him. All right, with Christ. Okay, that's the context. We're talking about Christ. So if we Christians endure or suffer, present tense, in the future we shall also reign with Jesus, with Christ. All right, what's the rest of the verse say, Alyssa?
If we deny him, we also will deny us.
He also will deny us, right? Okay, if we deny him, he'll deny us. People say, boom, 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 you can lose your salvation. All right, that won't work. Why? What's the first part of the verse talking about? And what? Is reigning got anything to do with salvation? We've already seen in Revelation 2:26 it does it, right? You got to be an overcomer, believe in Jesus, but you also have to what? Be faithful and endure. So if we suffer, endure, then we'll reign with him. So the context of part A is what? Future kingdom participation. In that context, which is clear-cut, it's beyond debate. If we deny him, he'll deny us. What will he deny? Salvation? Salvation is nowhere in the verse. So what's he going to deny us based on part A? Yeah, the future kingdom participation, right? Look at, and just to make sure that y'all see that I'm not ignoring this, look at verse 13. Now listen, will you read verse 13?
If we are faithless, he remains faithful. We cannot deny himself.
He cannot deny himself. Yeah, okay. Now, if we're faithless, he remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. All right. Does anybody have the King James here? Michelle, go ahead. All right. So he said, hers said, if we're faithless, and Michelle said, if we believe not. Let me just look at it in the Greek. Okay. In the Greek, it literally is if we don't believe. Pistou is believe. A theist is what? What is a theist? Somebody that believes in what? Right. What is an atheist? Doesn't believe in God, right? In Greek here, you have the word believe, and in front of it you have the letter A, ah. So you got an believer. What does that mean? A not believer, okay? So if we don't believe, that's what it says. So if we don't believe, he remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. So why is that important? Why is that important? That is what does believing get you? Rewards or salvation? Right. This is talking about salvation. If we don't believe, what happens to us? He remains faithful. Once you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, can you unaccept him? And if you do, if it were possible, what happens? Well, you can't, because Hebrews chapter 6, you couldn't be saved again. But what happens according to this verse? If you don't believe, is your salvation, after you believe in him, is your salvation maintained by you continuing to believe at all times? Let's put it this way. Suppose I believe today. Ian, how many months ago did you get saved? About 7 or 8 now? 8 months? Okay, we'll call it 8. All right, 8 months ago you got saved. Okay? You put both feet in the chair, right? Okay. What if today something horrible happened in his life and he doubts God? Is that possible? That's possible, right? We all know that kind of situation, right? So Ian says, I ain't so sure I believe anymore. I'm putting another foot on the ground. I may want to go this Buddhist way. I may want to try that. Is it even possible? If he's really a believer and he put both feet in the chair, can he lose his salvation. The Bible says if we don't believe, yet he remains faithful. Who remains faithful? Jesus and God, right? Why? He can't deny himself. Once we are saved, whose are we? And who is within us? All right? And are we part of him and part of his family immediately? All right? Catherine, Sadie does something really stupid. Really stupid. And you say, I'm going to disown you. You mean you can't not make her your child? There's no way to undo that? You can't undo her being your child? It's not possible. You can't change her DNA. You can't swap out her blood and her genes. That's not possible. Isn't that amazing? She's a human being dealing with a human being, and she can't change it. We're talking about our eternal soul, and God says, you're my child. You've got my DNA. You got my blood. You're my family. Do you think you can change that because you have a moment of faithfulness? You think that's possible? You can't change being a child of God any more than you can change Sadie being your child, right? Okay. He can't deny himself. All right? So I want you to keep that in mind. All right, so here we go. I'm going to bring it home. Roman numeral 13, reward and loss. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 11 through 15. If you'll turn there quickly, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 11 through 15. All right. And read it very quickly for yourselves. What it essentially says is this. Jesus Christ is the foundation. You can't add to that foundation. That is the foundation. But you are responsible for building on that foundation a structure for God's glory. And at the judgment seat of Christ, the beam of judgment, what you have built is going to be tested by fire. Notice what I said. What you have built. Are you going to be tested? No. What you have built will be tested. You look at the verses carefully. And it's either going to be wood, hay, and straw, or it's going to be precious stones, silver and gold that you built with. And when the fire hits the wood, hay, and stubble, straw, what happens to wood, hay, and stubble when you put fire to it? It burns up. What happens when you put fire to gold and precious stones and things of that nature? It purifies it, right? It doesn't destroy it, right? So look at verses 11 through 15, and then notice what it says. If he doesn't do any good works, and all of his works are burned up, all of them, yet he himself what? He'll do what, shall? Save. Based on what? Something surviving the fire? No. What does it say? He'll be saved though as by fire. He wasn't being tested. His works were. So Jesus is going to test your works, which have nothing to do with salvation, because why, Alyssa? Ephesians 2, 8, 9, what does it say? Not of what?
Not of works.
Not of works. He can't be testing him. He's testing his works. It can't be for salvation because salvation is not of works. You see, okay? So believers are to build on the foundation, and what we build will be evaluated. What are the possible outcomes? Receive a reward or lose a reward, not receive salvation or lose salvation. The critical statement, he himself will be saved, yet as though through fire. Salvation remains, the rewards are lost. So here's the final synthesis, Roman numeral 14. Hebrews 4 teaches this. Rest does remain available. The rest is future-oriented. The rest is tied to our inheritance, and the rest, to obtain it, requires our perseverance right now. It's not about justification. The issue is not how do we get saved. The issue is will we enter into what God has prepared. So here's the core principle. Grace provides the opportunity. Could Israel go to God and demand entrance into the promised land? Hey God, I'm a Jew, give me the promised land. You got to. No. God can give it to him whenever he saw fit and still keep his word. What if he did it 10 billion years from now? They can't go and say, give it to me now, right? But grace gives them the opportunity. Why? They're God's chosen people, and we're God's family. Grace provides the opportunity, but faithfulness provides the participation. Hebrews 4, 1 through 13 presents a sobering yet very hopeful reality. There does remain a rest. That is a kingdom, an inheritance, but the warning stands. Don't fall short. Don't fail to enter. Don't treat lightly what God has offered and promised. Okay? Cleveland had his blinker on. He was ready to get off at 11A, but Catherine didn't quite get the information to him in time, and he missed it, thinking it was 11B. You have been saved. You are entering in. But if you don't do what God requires, you will miss the kingdom participation that God has offered you and is offering you right now. But you got to get off at the right exit, or you'll end up in the wrong place. Now, that leads naturally to the next question. If rest represents participation in future glory, and if accountability is real, then how should believers live right now in light of that coming evaluation? How do we pursue faithfulness without slipping into anxiety? How do we rightly understand the relationship between diligence and assurance? Well, in our next session, Brother John is going to take this foundation that I've laid and explore those very questions in his lecture, Living from Rest, Not Fear. I'm going to go back to Catherine as I close. If Sadie knows that it's impossible for you to change her DNA, and it's impossible for you to change her blood, and it's impossible for you to remove her from actually being your child, should that give her security, or should that give her anxiety? Okay. But should it give her responsibility or an excuse for living up to the family name? Responsibility, right? They come together. Whose child are you? God's child. Does that give you an excuse or responsibility? Responsibility to live up to the family name. You see what I'm saying? And if you don't live up to the family name, what happens to Sadie? Discipline, right? And if you don't live up to God's family name, what happens? Discipline. You don't get what God intended. I'm going to close with this as I say. When I was a little boy, we got do y'all remember head-to-head football? I'm dating myself. This is back before Game Boys and all that, okay? Cleveland, you might remember this. I don't know. It might even be too old for you. Do you remember it, Shell? The football game, there was a little screen, and there were two controllers on each side, and they call it head-to-head football. Why do they call it head-to-head? Because you leaned over, and your heads touched each other, and you're working these little buttons, and all it was an up arrow, left and right arrow, and a down arrow. That's all it was. And all you did was move a dash on the screen, which was only yay big. And the defense had 3 dashes, and the offense had 3 dashes, and you were the ball carrier, and he was the linebacker. And as you ran, he tried to get his dot to tackle your dot. That was head-to-head football. That's high technology, right? It's called head-to-head. Me and my brother wanted it. We grew up poor. And when I was 8 years old, we actually got a head-to-head. That's all we got that Christmas. We got a head-to-head football game. That's pretty good. We opened it up. That was our one present. We were ecstatic. We immediately butted heads and started playing it. Only one problem with our game, in my opinion. It had a glitch in it. And every time I would go to tackle my brother, he could double tap his right button, and even though I was touching him, it would scoot him over, and he'd keep going. My button didn't do that. So after he scored like 7 touchdowns in a row, even though I was tackling him, I was getting kind of frustrated. And my dad said, if y'all don't quit fussing, I'm going to take that game from you. And the next time we got the ball, he did that little double tap, and I wasn't able to tackle him. And I got frustrated, and I said something. What do you think my dad did? I'm going to tell you what he did. Right there in front of us on Christmas morning, because we'd only had it 25 minutes. That was our only present. He took the game from us. He took a hammer, and he shattered it on the floor into 1,000 pieces. It wasn't just one hit. He shattered it. You couldn't have put it back together if you'd have been an engineer. Here's my point. Was the game available? Yes. Could I have kept the game and played it? Yes. But there was a condition. What was the condition? Don't fight and fuss with your brother. I did, and what happened to my game? I lost it. It was there. It was available. But there was a condition. The kingdom is there. It's available. But there is a condition. Don't have your participation in the kingdom taken away. But I don't want you to be anxious about that. Should I have been anxious about losing my game? It's a pretty easy fix, wasn't it, Brother John? All I had to do was what? Keep my big mouth shut. Simple. I didn't have to fear that. If I'd have kept my mouth shut, I'd still have the game today. But I didn't. So Brother John's going to tell us how to live from rest and not fear. Thank you all for coming.